Let's meet a Laois man living in Oslo. Padraig Woods joins us on the line this morning. Good morning to you, Padraig.
Good morning, Clara.
Padraig, firstly, you're a Durrow man in County Laois, but living in Oslo for how many years now?
Just over 10 years.
And Padraig, where were you when the hell began to unfold last Friday?
Luckily, I was on holidays until Sunday night, so I missed the explosion.
Were you still in Norway for it?
No, I only came back Sunday night, so the explosion was on Friday.
And you would have been living, or you would have been working close to where the explosion took place. Roughly how far away were you? Should you have been, I should say.
It's about 100 metres from the bomb site, so it's the government buildings have 4 or 5 buildings in a square, and our building is adjacent to one of the government buildings. And
when you went back to work on Monday, what was the damage?
The windows, we've got a glass facade, so the windows at the front have all been smashed. Some of the windows on the inside have been smashed. The office is actually surprisingly okay, but just the glass is broken. The whole front of the whole government quarter is blocked now, so we can't enter from that side of the building. But I mean, I work in VG, which is Norway's biggest newspaper. So the next day, on Saturday, we were back up and running again. So it wasn't long before we were allowed back into the building with the army checking security and access. And
were you there for when the army were checking out everything?
Well, there's still security on the entry points. We come in from the back entrance now. The back entrance of our building is also the court entrance. So when the court hearing was on yesterday, we had about 300 journalists from around the world outside the back entrance of our building. So we still have security on the back entrance. But we can everybody's at work now, so it's back to normal.
From your colleagues that were actually there when the bomb exploded, what did they say it was like?
Well, the journalists that were at the front of the building, some of them said they were lifted off the chair. Just a loud explosion. They rushed down. Everybody was evacuated quickly. Some of them evacuated the front of the building where the glass was falling. Some of them evacuated to the back of the building. They came out to a horror scene. There's glass everywhere. There's people injured from the falling glass. There's smoke. There's fire. The emergency services have to arrive. So just a horrific scene.
And was there the fear that it was something similar to the attacks in America on September the 11th?
Well, when I was away, the first thing I thought of, and the first thing I think most people in the building thought of, was there was a book published about a month ago in Norway about the Danish cartoonist who drew the Mohammed cartoons. And this publisher is the next building beside ours. So the first thing I thought of was it was an attack on them, because there's a big police presence around our building at the time of the book being published. But it came out pretty quickly because the man was taken pretty quickly that he was a regular Norwegian from the far right. So it was cleared up pretty quickly, But I think the initial suspicion was that it was
a terrorist attack.
A terrorist attack. Yeah.
How did you feel when you heard about the island and the basically the horrible, cold, calculated killing of particularly young people?
I think just shock. It's everybody's in shock. Like there was a march last night. There was 200,000 people in the city with flowers, and different people spoke. And I think just everybody's in shock because it's a small city, it's a small country, and people know people who know people, that kind of thing, that were on the island or that have family or have people affected by it, So I came to work yesterday morning, and the guy beside me, one of his best friends, was on the island, and he said he had to play dead. The gunman walked over his body and shot people around him. So, I mean, the stories are starting to come out now. There's 700 people on the island, there's 700 stories to be told, and they're starting to trickle out now. So I think it's just horrific stories, horrific things happened,
Yeah, because I read one article about how a young man it could be your friend's friend, how he tried to swim off the island, felt he was going to drown, then went back on and played dead by just the water. But so many horrific stories of people having to hide and all of that. And I think, you get the feeling that there's mass unity, anger, solidarity among the Norwegian people. But I actually think that's among Europeans, it's among across the world completely. But yesterday when the Anders was taken to court. You in the paper there, but in general, how were people in Norway reacting to that? Was there? I know there was a load of people out to try and see him, and that there was anger and stuff like that. But what was the feeling then in the court case?
I think the Norwegians are very reserved, and that they took it with a lot of dignity and a lot of respect. Really, they didn't really react in a strong way, or not yet. At least, I think they're still in shock.
Mm-hmm.
Outside the court, there mainly was journalists. There were a few protesters, and they waited for about an hour. But there's a tunnel under the court, and they drove him in through the tunnel. So nobody actually, or the journalists caught him on the way out of the court through the tunnel, but none of the protesters saw him or got to see the car, But I think it's just shock that, especially since it's a regular Norwegian. The guy looks like every other Norwegian. He's blonde, tall, white.
He's an attractive-looking guy. He looks like a regular dude.
It's a typical Norwegian, and I think that's the most shocking part. The people expect this kind of monster, this picture of a monster, but he's a regular-looking guy. He's had a pretty regular background, upbringing. So I think that's what's most shocking. That's the person that's been walking among them for the last 32 years. Could do this.
And the fact that he says that there was 2 other cells, that there's 2 other cells out there now as we speak. Does that mean that people are slightly living in fear, or they got confidence in the action that's been taken by the authorities?
I think they have confidence. Like last night, there was 120,000 people, and the Crown Prince had a speech in front of 120,000 people.
This is after the flower procession.
This is during the flower procession, and Jens Stoltenberg, the Prime Minister, had a speech, and the head of Amnesty International in Norway had a speech. And this is in front of so many people. So I think there is fear there, but I don't think it's affecting these people at least. People are out in numbers, and there's a big sense of solidarity and coming together. So I don't think the fear is there, and maybe they have the intelligence to know, or the information to know that that's not a threat. That's why they're coming out. But the police presence and the army presence on the streets has calmed down a lot. There's a lot of people out around the streets every day. So I think the fear has gone at this stage.
Were you at that procession last night and the speeches?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
And what was that like? Was it momentous?
It was incredible. There's a couple of speeches and then the songs afterwards, and one of the songs was very touching, and I think everybody was affected. Really, it was very sad, very quiet, very solemn. It's just an incredible experience. Everybody held flowers above their heads, and it just looked like 120,000 people with flowers. So it's just an incredible sight, really.
Padraig, I have to ask you, being from Ireland in particular, from Durrow and Laois, is there a relationship between all of the Irish people in Norway, and the population of Norway wouldn't be that much bigger than ours here in Ireland? No,
we all know each other. There's the Irish in Norway, at least. There's about 500 turn up for the St. Patrick's Day parade every year. It's a very small community. Most people know other Irish people here. So last night there's about 10 of us came together, and we went together in the march. So I think there is a good sense of community here, both from the Irish side and from the Norwegian side.
How did you end up in Norway, Padraig?
I came for work. I came pre-Celtic Tiger, and I stayed because I liked it. So I'm here almost 11 years.
And for your family at home, when all of this started to happen over the weekend, were they on Skype to you, on text to you straight away, or were you to them?
Well, I was in Albania at the time. So
Albania. Very nice.
Yeah, so I didn't have my mobile with me. But when I came back in the evening, I saw all the texts. There was 20 texts from people. So I rang home at that stage to find out some information. We didn't even see the TV or anything. So the information started to trickle in, and the first information we got was that the building I'm in was hit because it's the newspaper. It's the biggest newspaper in Norway. So that was the first information we got. And then I rang some people at work to see if they knew anything, and they said no, it was the government building. So just information started to trickle in, and it started to become clear what happened.
What now for the people of Norway, Padraig?
But I think there'll be a big debate now about security, about about how they handled it as well, how the police reacted. The government buildings, there's two parallel streets. They had planned to redevelop that area and to close the streets. So I think that'll happen quicker than it was meant to happen. I imagine the security levels will increase, but all the messages from the politicians are that it'll have the opposite effect of what the guy wanted. That it'll become more democratic and more open, and so we'll just have to wait to see. I think there'll be a big discussion around the whole issue after the whole media circus dies down.
And just back to Anders there for a second, and him being up in court and now in custody for 8 weeks, the first 4 of those in solitary confinement with no visits or no letters, no correspondence. Do people, what do they want for him? He's admitted to it. Do they want him to have life behind sentence? Do they want execution? Do they want the severe punishments?
I don't think people have even started discussing that yet. The maximum sentence in Norway is 21 years, and I think there's some legal way for him for that to be extended after 21 years. So there are people talking about that it's too short, and that we should reform. They should reform the system so that they can take into account for cases like this. Of this scale, but I don't think people have thought that far yet. We're only 3 days after the bomb, so I think people are still
in the healing
still in
process.
shock. They're still thinking about the victims and not the perpetrator at this stage.
Okay, Padraig, thank you very much for taking our call this morning, and stay safe.
No problem. Thanks.
Thank you. That is Padraig there, and Padraig is originally from Durrow in County Laois, and as he said there himself, he moved to Norway and to Oslo in the last recession. We wish everybody from Ireland in Norway the very best. We hope that their family and friends weren't hurt by the tragedies over the weekend, and we hope that the Norway people can recover from this in a dignified way that they tend to hold themselves throughout all. If you have a comment on it, do text us on 083 30 10 103, or you can call Sinead on 0818 300 103.